Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for part two of our coffee chat, building the best customer experience in utility storm response. My name is Brett Simon. I'm being joined by Melanie Spring from Melanie Spring Consultants. Melanie, you want to give a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Spring. As Brett mentioned, I have spent most of my career working for a large utility in a number of roles, from engineering in both transmission and distribution. Spent time in operations and worked on some large modernization projects. And like most utility employees throughout my tenure there, I held many storm roles, everything from kind of all aspects of the damage assessment process, working in operations, restoration, crew management, and kind of rounding out my experience with a stint in logistics in our state command. I'm now consulting independently and helping other utilities with their own transformations and kind of rethinking the way that we do business in utilities.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Melanie. So let's dive into it. I
Sure.
mean, given just how you explained it, you've been kind of in all parts of the utility operations space as it relates to storm response. But I mean, now you're kind of on both sides. So can you kind of go into a little bit about what it's like to be a customer that may not be as connected during a storm versus what it was like when you were actually in the know and able to see what was going on?
Yeah, sure. So I live in New Orleans. So obviously, hurricanes are our storm event of choice. I guess a huge change for me over the last year, in 2020, there was an extremely active storm season in Louisiana. I spent weeks, months on the road in disaster areas supporting my logistics role. Um, Thankfully, during 2020, New Orleans itself wasn't as majorly affected as other parts of the state. So, my home life was kind of stable while I was off doing my storm role. Flash forward to 2021, I find myself no longer working at the utility, and New Orleans gets hit with Hurricane Ida. So, I found myself in a position that I hadn't been in a long time, where I evacuated with my family. I did not, go to work in advance of the event, and it was pretty different. I was several states away, and just kind of watching everything unfold just like everyone else on my phone and on the TV, not having all the weather forecasts that I enjoyed, when I worked for the utility, not really having any of the insights before the event. And then, during the storm itself, the entire city of New Orleans lost power due to failures, on the transmission system. And, again, I find out the same way everyone else does, just on the news. And I mean, to be honest, I felt helpless and a little bit useless. Like I should have been maybe doing something different besides kind of sitting there and watching. But, I even as much understanding as I have of power delivery, I felt it, just sort of that, like, you're desperate for information, and it's hard to come by at times.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely an experience that was probably new for you.
Yes, and I still have friends at the utility, and tried to control the urge to bug them all the time, but I bugged them a little. Just couldn't help myself.
Hey, I mean, you still have a little bit of inside knowledge, so
That's right.
but yes, it was definitely more on that outside experience. So kind of related to that, I mean, now that I'm very sorry that you had to go through Hurricane Ida, or anyone that had to go through Hurricane Ida. It's definitely devastating to see what occurred there, and it's unfortunate, but I'm glad the New Orleans community and Louisiana community is very resilient. But from a customer experience point of view, during a storm, kind of describe like what is a typical customer experience, assuming there's damage, outages, things like that.
Yeah, I think about my friends and family, and I was with some friends, and obviously in close contact with other friends and my family, and they don't understand the language. I based on what I saw in the outage map, or, based on what I heard in the news, what was being reported, I was able to draw some conclusions. But, frankly, customers, they don't understand the language that utilities use. They also don't really understand how power gets to their house, right? So when you have a major event like a Hurricane Ida, Hurricane Laura, you lose generation, transmission, and distribution. Most customers don't understand that you need that all those links unbroken for power to actually, come to your house. And so, it was, I found myself spending a lot of time just trying to explain, what does this mean? What does it mean that, there's this very visible transmission structure, that's fallen, that everybody's taking pictures of? What really does that mean? As far as restoration, they also don't understand the restoration process. I think there's a big perception that if I don't see someone working in front of my house, they're not working on my power. So even, you drive around town, you see the substations, that doesn't connect to everyone that that's where my power is coming from. And so, if they're working on the substation or in your neighborhood, it still might be helping you, but you don't see it. So I, you know, I like I said, I found myself doing a lot of explaining and educating, about that. And then, also kind of the topic we talked on the last time. You have to get resources in. It takes a minute. You can't bring them in before the storm, because then you're putting them in a disaster area. So you try to get them close, but it takes some time, to put your eyes on what the damage is, and begin to assign work. So, just sort of telling that story over and over again, I think was really like, something I was able to help with. But most customers, they just don't have any way to access that information, and so they're just truly left with what they read in the news, what they see on Twitter.
Oh, I mean, I completely understand that challenge because I mean, even though I work in the industry, I mean, there's sometimes where my power goes out or my neighbors does, and I'm like, for a split second, I'm like, wait, why am I out and why aren't they? And then I remember
Yeah,
that the way the circuit comes in is two different complete lines, and
yeah,
we're completely separated there, so it can be challenging. And so kind of with that, I mean, customers are not utility experts, but how can utility kind of improve that customer interaction? Because I mean, as we know, like knowledge travels extremely fast and news travels extremely fast. So how can utilities really improve that customer experience?
yeah. And news and knowledge travel fast. And everybody is just on the pulse of where crews are, and I saw crews here and I didn't see crews here, and I saw crews sitting and I don't understand why. And then I think that expectations have just changed, where we are a society that is no longer kind of willing to just open the windows and then enjoy a couple days without power. I mean, I can't live without my phone or computer. So I think it's definitely, it's education. I always kind of have this idea that, should we be getting on the news and sort of explaining it, but like over and over again, so customers really understand it. I noticed in the New Orleans area, a couple of local politicians did a really nice job on their Instagram of explaining it to their constituents. And I found myself linking to that and sharing it with people, just to say, like, look, somebody else has already packaged this up. This is exactly what, I want you to know. But in the middle of the event, it's very hard to get that message across. So, I do think there's maybe some like marketing and education opportunities that utilities could take out on the local news, and leading up to events. I mean, they talk about it, but I'm not sure it really resonates. They're always involved in the press conferences, but still, the vast majority of customers, I found, even like other engineers, and just their understanding of the grid is very very minor.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes even the transmission engineers and the distribution engineers, like, I mean, there's definitely some siloed knowledge there as well.
Yeah,
So no,
yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
yeah.
So
I'll
I
even
mean,
tell you the story. I found myself, I screenshotted a picture of a fuse, one open and one closed, and I was trying to tell my neighbor who was home to like walk the line and get to where she would find this device and tell me if it was open or closed, and just even to say like I want you to look for a line fuse. They don't know what that is, and then whether it's open or closed, and so I'm hundreds of miles away and trying to do my own mini damage assessment just because I'm just desperate to know something about what's going on back at home.
No, it's yeah, you probably were like trying to take a video or have her take a video, and then I mean just getting access to that and saying, okay, well,
Yeah,
where is she is just very, very
yeah.
challenging. I hear you on that. So yeah, no, I mean, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today. So as we wrap up, knowing the full picture of storm response, I mean, you've had a lot of experience. You're in New Orleans, which is a big hotspot for hurricanes. Hopefully not too many per year, and you guys are used to them and well prepared. But what's kind of one thing you wish that a utility knew that a customer knows, and then vice versa? What do you wish a customer knew that's kind of in that insider knowledge for a utility?
Well, I'll say as someone who, and I know some utilities are moving in this direction and maybe faster than others, as someone who um, has been a part of the damage assessment process, the customers, I know, you don't want them getting close to, down power lines and to damage and all, but they're out there in the public, and they're moving around or they're walking their neighborhoods, and just to continue to create mechanisms for them to turn in damage assessment and actually have it be useful information, I think would be such an asset. And then the customer could maybe, instead of complaining and griping, like they feel like they're a part of the process, maybe even in your work management systems, you don't want to put your crews at risk by the public knowing too much, but the public goes out looking for them anyway. Is there a way to tie that communication back to the customer? So that's kind of my wish for the utilities, is like, let the customers become a part of the process more than just that call to say my power's out. Because during a major event, you don't really need that call, and with AMI, you won't need it at all in the future. But is there a way to capitalize on them actually just being out there and seeing what's going on?
Yeah, and actually,
Um,
from a customer standpoint, I mean, sometimes customers, we always think of customers just being like an individual homeowner, but I mean, there's customers that they're out there restoring their own infrastructure, like telecom
yeah,
or even insurance companies. Like they have their own tools, and so that whole concept
yeah,
of data sharing and communication is definitely huge.
yeah. I agree. And then what do I wish the customers knew? I wish that maybe they could understand, it's not, we there's this feeling that my lights are out, maybe because of shoddy workmanship or like a lack of investment. And sometimes that does happen. But when you have a wind and lightning event, and torrential rain, lots of little things, just little components can fail or become disconnected, and it can cause a power outage. And in almost every case, you've got to send a person or a crew out there to make the rest, to make the repair and restore the customers. And so it's, we talked about this the last time as well. Like, there's this balance between too many resources, so many resources, you can't manage them. And so it actually slows the restoration down. And, you're kind of trying to find that sweet spot. But it's not for lack of trying. Everyone at the utility, their full-time job becomes restoration. And look no further than the fact that the utility is not making any money if the meters aren't turning. So nobody wants the lights on more than the utility. It just truly is a process, and it takes a lot of manpower to put your eyes on every piece of damage and make sure every customer gets restored. And everybody wants that to happen as quickly as possible.
I mean, Melanie, thank you so much for coming today. Just a reminder for everyone, this was part two of this Coffee Chat event series. The first one's available on YouTube, and will be included in the follow-up email that you'll receive with the recording of this event. Thank you so much, Melanie, and to those of you watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.